shining on your head.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Empower You. I'm your host, Janet Hickox, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Bryn Morgan.
Hi.
And Roger Wetzel, who is muted again for some reason. Oh, hello. And we are sitting here this afternoon with our guest, Michelle Burns. Hello, Michelle, and welcome to Empower You.
Thank you for having me.
We're excited to have you here because we have been working on the idea of health and healing and the body. And last week we had Larry Berkelhammer on the show. He has written a book about the mind and health, or mindfulness and health. And one of the things that I think every one of us is aware of is how the whether or not we love ourselves has a lot to do with our own personal health. And so we were really excited when Roger said he knew somebody that did this topic.
Excellent.
So we're really excited about that. So Roger, are you ready to introduce Michelle?
Technical difficulties.
Are you?
Hold on.
Okay.
You don't want to cut to Roger right now. Oh, there he is.
I see him. We have two of you, Roger. Are you a twin? Are you a clone?
I am.
Hey, but now your computer's working and we see you in living color.
Yeah, but can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And we can see you still doubled.
All right.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about self-love.
Hold on, I'm trying to get myself off my phone. That would be good.
What'll be good? But you're wearing a different shirt in that picture. How is that? How can that be?
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Good.
All right. Can you hear us and you see everybody?
Yeah, I was having technical difficulty because I was on my phone and logged into you guys so I was logged in twice.
I know.
Yes.
So I'm here now.
Technical.
And I don't know how I got two different shirts on.
Doesn't it look like it, girls? His picture in his phone, he looks like he's wearing dark blue. In this picture, he's wearing lighter blue. Maybe the same.
Right, enough already.
We can pick on you. You're the only guy today.
Fine, I can handle it.
All right. Now that Biggie's laughing at us in the background, so can we carry on now and have you introduce our lovely guest, Michelle Burns, today?
I would love to, yes. Michelle and I met, not that long ago, about 7 or 8 weeks ago, through a online class we were doing through MIT and Otto Scharmer called Theory. It was based on his book Theory U. Anyway, Michelle joined a coaching group, and I joined a coaching group, and we had no idea who was going to be in it, and so here we are today. And through the process of conversation, it's come out that we have some commonalities in things that we want to create. And Michelle's is creating self-love and a program for self-love. And I thought that would be a really ideal show because I think that that's something that's sorely lacking in this world. Mm-hmm. So I would like to basically just turn it over to Michelle and just ask her the first question, which is, first of all, welcome, and why do you think self-love is so important?
Thank you, Roger. So what I would like to do, I think, because, it's such a big topic, just to create a little bit of context, I'll explain first of all, why it's so important, and then I'll talk a little bit about the self, and then I'll give my definition of self-love, and then we can have a discussion about the topic, a lively discussion. So I think it's really important right now, and this is why I've kind of decided to focus in on the topic of self-love, is that I work with people one-on-one as a transformational life coach and as a yoga teacher, and I'm noticing that, people are really struggling right now. There's various different levels of struggle. So there's people that, on the extreme end, there's people who are in really deep emotional pain. and physical pain. They're stressed and burnt out. They're overwhelmed. They're overworked. They're feeling disconnected. There's anxiety and depression and addiction are epidemic. And this deep internal conflict that people have with themselves is leading to problems in relationships and problems in their personal lives. And then there's people who are actually in transition, and they're, they may already be on a growth path and they're making changes in their life, but they're really looking for ways to kind of navigate the transition. And then there's people who are just really feeling stuck. And people are looking for solutions. They're looking for answers. They're looking for, they really are looking for answers and solutions for the challenges they're facing in their own lives. And collectively, we need to find creative solutions for challenges that we're facing on the planet right now. So bigger problems like politically, economically, socially, and ecologically. We're in need of transformation and in need of a new direction. And that's why I think the conversation is so important right now, because what goes on with all of us individually does have an impact on what goes on collectively. And as people learn how to access their own deep inner resources and their own inner knowing, and to really learn how to honor and appreciate and respect themselves at that level, then we can, that affects what happens collectively as well.
So that's awesome. And I think that, you look at the world and what's going on, and we've talked about this before. It's like it's insane what's happening. We're making ourselves insane. So given that, what's your definition of self-love?
So the other side of that story, and I will go to that definition in a second, but I'm really noticing there's a deep longing and a real hunger for more meaning, for more purpose, for community, connecting, for people wanting to know what realize more of their potential. And people are really sort of waking up to, wanting to grow into more of who they are. And so this moment of disruption and all this pain that's being created right now, and the pain that people are feeling really is a gateway to people opening up to connecting with their deeper self. And when they can connect with that and really honor it, is the beginning of self-love. But what I want to say about it, people are actually the disconnect. They're feeling that disconnect. They're really disconnected from their deep inner knowing, and that's what's causing most of the pain right now. Is a disconnection from their essential self and their authentic self. So, in terms of self-love, my definition, you hear people say it. The words being kind of tossed around a lot right now, that people are saying things like, you just need to love yourself more. And if you just loved yourself more, that wouldn't have happened. Or you need to love yourself before you can love somebody else. And so I'm seeing it a lot, actually. People are talking about self-love, but it's at a very superficial level. And, when I'm asking, people who are actually saying it, when I'm asking them to describe to me what self-love means, they give me a very surface level definition. And, they'll say things like, well, and I know one time in particular when I was in a really challenging place, people would say, well, you just need to, be kind to yourself and pamper yourself, or do something nice for yourself, buy yourself something, go out for dinner, whatever. And they were talking about, definitely those things will make us feel better. But for somebody who's really disconnected from their authentic self, and they're not in a place of self-love, those actions are not necessarily going to bring them to a place of self-love. It will make them feel better. But someone who is operating from a place of self-love would be more inclined to treat themselves that way to begin with. Like that's, if we're really in a place of self-love. So the definition that I have, I know one time when I was in a particularly dark place and I was looking for answers and I just couldn't get this self-love thing. And people kept saying it to me, you just need to love yourself more. And I was really struggling to figure out what that meant. Mm-hmm. And I stumbled upon, I was reading a book. I'm very interested in yoga, and I was reading a book, and there was a quote in there by this yoga master. And the quote was, love not anyone, not even God. Or picking and choosing love brings misery. Instead, let God love you. Be love itself. And it was in that moment that I really got it that, that this isn't something that I can do specifically unless I connect first. So in the moment that I read that quote, I sat down and I just thought, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to sit here and I'm just going to open up and just really just set that intention and let God love me. And I really felt everything shift in that moment. And I felt something moving through me. Like when I opened up, I could feel something moving through me. And then I knew that this is it. It's the connection with our own, with that divine within us, with the deeper inner knowing in our spirit, that goodness, truth, and beauty are actually seeking expression through us. And when we allow ourselves to be still enough and quiet enough, and we can allow this to move through us, and it's our intuition, it's our creative intelligence, it's our passion, it's the alignment with our purpose, then that's the connection with our most authentic self. And then I'll take the definition of self-love a little further to that self-love, it grows through actions that really support our greatest good. So when I allow myself to know, it's really getting to know yourself at that level. Like, what is most important to me? What are my deepest core values? What is it that would really allow me to thrive? What is my purpose? What are my gifts? And then self-love grows in from actions that really support that support my greatest good, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And by actions that lead me in the direction of my highest future potential. So there was another quote that I found that I really appreciate, and I've had this passage in front of me for many years now. And this is by Martha Graham. And she says, there is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all of time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium, and it will be lost. And the world will not have it. And it's not your business to determine how good it is, nor how valuable it is, or to compare it to other expressions. It is your business to keep it yours clearly and directly, and keep the channel open.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that, and so if we can connect with that and keep the channel open and just know that there is something very unique that's coming through each and every one of us, and then to consistently connect with that and allow it to guide us and inform all of our decisions and actions, then we're constantly aligned with our deepest self. And then it's up to us to take the actions that will serve our highest good and lead us to our highest future potential.
I think you answered that pretty well.
Just like that.
Just like that. I think one of the things before the show today, I was doing some writing and preparation for some videos that I'm working on, and one of the things that hit me was the movie The Secret.
Right.
And you and I have talked about this a little bit, about the superficiality of things.
Right.
And if you remember the movie The Secret, there was some really great information in there, but at the same time, it made it seem like it was so easy that it became so superficial. Like if you just sit down and visualize checks coming to you, that in the next month the checks are going to start rolling in.
Yeah.
And I think, as you were talking, one of the things that I was thinking about is I'm really big on words, and one of these words that's so friggin' charged is the word love.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that with kind of what you were talking about in the definition that you gave, hopefully, number one, moves that beyond the superficial level. But I also think that there's the need to overcome our belief and our understanding and even our definition of what we think love is, to get to the point where we can start looking at what self-love means to us.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I appreciate you bringing up that point too, because, one of the things is that this is not easy. And as we know, Roger, I know you and I have had this conversation too about being on this path of growth. Like we've been doing this work for 20 plus years. And, of course it certainly has its, it's an unfolding, it's an ever, we're always going to be growing and opening up and letting go, moving away from some things and moving toward things. And there's no quick way of making it happen. It's just, we have to be committed to, when people get committed to when they get committed to aligning with their authentic self and start moving away from the programming and conditioning. I mean, I'll just say a little bit about the programming and conditioning, and I'll show you something about about what we're talking about. I often show people this pie. Scientists have, can you see that?
There you go.
This is show and tell.
Yeah.
So this pie. So scientists have been long been saying that we're using less than 10% of our potential. So the blue part of the pie, which is about 90%, that might represent our authentic self. And the green part of the pie, the 10%, is our self-image. And we're actually operating from our self-image most of the time, which is actually disconnected from our most authentic self, right? So the disconnect, what actually happens, each one of us, when we're born actually knowing that we are loved and that we do belong. And those two things are so important to all of us to know for love and belonging, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if the moment that we most of us have had, parents that weren't really connected with their authentic self. So as children, they couldn't really be with us in a way that encouraged and nurtured our authentic self. So that a disconnect often happened for most of us early in life, where we had to start competing for love, or we had to start behaving in ways in order to be accepted and loved. And so the disconnect happens at a very young age. If there's trauma, if there's abuse, if there's neglect, if there's unconditional love, which there is for the most part, we actually are disconnected from our sense of worth and our the knowing that we are loved and that we belong. And this idea about the worth, because the 90% of the pie, the big blue part, is really our worth, which you can't destroy and you can't get rid of. But what happens is when we get disconnected from it, is that we start trying to prove our worth. And children start to compete, and they start to do things to get attention to, if I do this, then I get positive feedback. If I do this. So we start creating this self-image, and we start behaving in ways that are going to get some positive feedback. And even if our parents were, I have a lot of my clients now are saying, well, I had this idyllic childhood and my parents were wonderful and they did all the right things. And, even if that was true, the thing that happens is that then we send our children to school and they're taught to, they're learning about right and wrong and good and bad and about being evaluated and graded. And, they're getting report cards, and they, with every test, they're having to prove their worth and demonstrate their worth. So they're feeling like there's something wrong with me. Always. Like there's, I'm not good enough. I don't measure up. I'm not like the rest of them. I don't fit in. So then we start to create this, that's how the self-image begins to get created, is that we want to do things to fit in now. We want to do things so we measure up. We're being taught to conform, be like everybody else. And this disconnect from ourselves, we just keep getting further away and further away and further away. And then the further we get away, the more pain we feel. So this is, anxiety and depression and fear and this sense of, not feeling good enough, not feeling valuable enough. And then we start to, even as adults, we start seeking, instead of connecting with our inner self and with the big blue part of the pie for our worth and our real power, we start looking outside ourselves to symbols of power. And the symbols of power are the material, is the whole material world. If I get enough money, I'll be worthy. If I get the right job, I'll be worthy. If I have the biggest house and the best job and the title and that these are external sources of power, and they will never ever fill the void that we feel inside. So it's another thing we hear it, it's like all the answers are on the inside and everything you need is on the inside. And it is actually true, except people just don't seem to know how to get there. And even when they do connect, they're not quite sure how to get it and make it work for them in their lives.
Right.
So the disconnect that happens in the self-image that we create after the disconnect is, that we then start to live within this comfort zone and this, with this self-image that is a coping strategy, really. And it's not good or bad or right or wrong necessarily, but it's only good enough to get you what you've already got.
Right, and like you said earlier, I mean, that disconnect leads you to depression and anxiety and addiction and all of the things that you're looking outside of yourself for, and you're never going to find.
Right.
Now, I know that what I'd like to do is, I know that you have 10 steps.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could go through each one of the steps really quickly, and then we can just open it up and go nuts over this whole topic.
Sure. Okay. So I'm just wondering if there's something else. Okay. Here's what I want to say though. I'm just going to say one thing before I go into the 10 steps. I want to, because this is the other reason why this is so important right now, that I think it's important that everybody understand this, is that there's your self-image and there is your authentic self. And then there is your future potential self that we haven't created yet. Okay, so sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Just lost my headset. So there's your self-image, which is the small self. There's your authentic self. So self-image is very limited. It's, that's the part of us that's struggling. It's who we think we are. It's the roles we play. It's, and then there's our authentic self that is, our connection to our deepest self, our wisdom, our intuition, passion, or purpose, what everyone seems to be longing for. And so we get to choose from which place you're going to create your future potential self.
Okay.
So you get to choose right now which one you want to create.
I'm going to choose the blue.
Good job. So here's the thing, if people just decide to, keep staying in their comfort zone and not wake up, and they just keep doing what they're doing, they will create their future self from where they're at right now, which is all the habits, patterns, and behaviors that are not serving them, the ones that are causing them pain, the ones that are causing them to, want to cover up with, people are in a lot of pain, and that's why they're in pain, is because they're operating from this very small part of themselves, and they're in this comfort zone. And so they're looking to cover up the pain with a pill or a drink or food or, and so that will continue. If people don't make a conscious choice to really open up and step out of their comfort zone and align with their true self, they will create their future, which will look pretty much like the way their life looks right now. If they choose to open up and expand into and realize more of their potential, they can create really start to use more of their potential and create a future that is, one of meaning and purpose and fulfillment. And they will be able to come up with the creative solutions that they want for their own lives. But then if we all did that collectively, then we could come up with the solutions that we desperately need on the planet right now. So that's the bigger reason for doing this. All right. So my 10 steps. There are 10 steps that I identified to getting there. So the very first thing is really knowing what's important to you. And 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 I think it's getting quiet and really asking. And I ask people this question all the time: what is most important to you? And people will say, well, my family and my friends, and it's like, yes, and I know those things they definitely are, but what's most important to you as a person? What is it that that is really going to if like I started thinking about it, and I thought, what is it that I really want to achieve, to contribute, to know about myself, to develop about myself before I die? And this is what started it for me. And then I started to get really clear about what was most important to me. And then I started looking in every area of my life, and I started, at what's important in my career, what's important in my finances, my family, relationships, spiritually. I went around the whole life wheel, and I just got really clear what is most important. So what are you passionate about? What are you longing for? And what is your life purpose? So I think that's the starting point, is really getting clear about what that is. Because if you connect with your power, but you are not going to channel it into something that's really meaningful for you, you can actually channel that power into something and it just gets scattered all over the place. And people use it to fuel their bad habits and their patterns and their behaviors. So the second step is to clarify a vision of your highest future potential. So I just showed that there's your small self, and then there's your authentic self, and then there's your highest future potential. So it's really important to create a vision and to know what that looks like, so that once you connect with your deeper self, you're actually moving in that direction. The next thing is take full responsibility for everything that's going on in your life right now. Because if you think that somebody else is holding you back, or that it's the economy, or that it's the government, or that it's anyone else is responsible for where you're at, then you can't move forward. They have your power. So it's really important that we take a look at that we stop using excuses, and that we really see we're the only ones that are holding us back. And once people take responsibility for what's going on in their lives, they have the power to change it. The next one is abandon certainty in favor of wonder. So, our small self wants certainty. It wants things figured out. It wants to know exactly how things are going to unfold. And in order for us to grow and change, we need to be more interested in what we don't yet know. And as soon as we open up to what we don't know, we are in the unknown, which is one of people's biggest fear, is the unknown. And it's to allow ourselves to be in that space of not knowing. It's essential to moving forward and really aligning with your deeper self. Which leads into the next one, which is hone your intuition. So it's every single day I wake up and I ask, what's most important today? If I really loved myself, how would I act? What would I do? How can I serve? What's for my greatest good? And as soon as I get the intuitive answer, which generally comes right away, then it's being courageous enough to act on it. And when I ask that question, I'm asking from my heart. I'm not in my head thinking, what do I need to do, or how am I going to do this? I'm really asking of when we're in our heart, our intuition will speak to us, and it's allowing ourselves to be guided by that. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. This one's huge, because we have very low tolerance for any kind of discomfort. We're always looking for a pill or a quick fix for any kind of discomfort. And the growth path can be painful. Like, there is pain, but I really believe suffering is optional. That's the difference. Because we will experience the pains of the growing pains and some emotional pain. And if we can be present with it and just, it moves through. But we have no tolerance for it. We're so quick to reach for something to make us feel better. And so getting it's just, we need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And as soon as you step out of your comfort zone to grow, you're going to be uncomfortable. So the more we can get used to that and learn how to bear it, that's how we grow and gain strength and courage and confidence.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to add something to that. I think that there's this idea out there that all of that, I agree with you on the suffering part. I'm not a fan. However, I believe that all of these things that you're pointing out and everything that you're talking about, it is going to be painful at times, and it's going to get messy at times.
Yeah.
There's no way to do it. There's no other way.
Right. And it's painful and messy not doing it.
It's worse. Right?
Exactly. At least this pain and mess will get you somewhere where you want to go, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yes. So, under that, I wrote, it's important that we know what to eliminate and what to cultivate physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I think one of the greatest barriers is that people are in deep emotional pain and they don't have tools to process emotional pain. So we've got a lot of backlog and a lot of it held. There's, trauma and a backlog of emotions that people don't know what to do with. And they don't want to look at that. And, it's not necessarily about being emotional, but it's about learning how to really connect with yourself and be present with what is. I mean, and some of that is emotional pain. So it's knowing what to eliminate and what to cultivate physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that the next one on the list is that understanding that every single challenge is an opportunity to grow. And so, we're saying that this is not necessarily an easy path, but there is a process that you can follow. And I really know that as soon as people commit to living more in alignment with their truth, anything that's untrue will come to the surface. And so that moment of disruption right there is an opportunity for you to really open up. Like, one of two things can happen. You can either expand and open up and realize more of your potential right in that moment and step up to the plate and do something new, or you can contract and shut down and go back into your comfort zone, the small part of the pie, which most people do, right? Mm-hmm. So that every single challenge, if we could start, if people really understood that, that every challenge is the opportunity to grow, then we would welcome the challenges rather than freaking out going, oh my God, what's going on in my life, right? Mm-hmm. The next one on the list is to grow into what you already know. It's such an interesting thing because when I sit down with people and I ask them, what do you need to do? They know exactly what they need to do. And a lot of times they're not doing it, and we're looking for new insights and we want new things, but we've got so much information. We've actually we're overwhelmed with information and tools and resources, but we're not using them. So if people could, create a structure where they can start to use what they already know, they would be, they could really get on track. And then being really clear about your intentions and bring attention and awareness to everything you do. And then the final one on the list is to let go and allow, and let every single action move you in the direction of your highest future potential.
Excellent.
So now you've got the recipe.
So now we can go.
There you go. Thanks.
I think it's interesting as you're going through this list that a lot of this goes back to your third point, which is taking full responsibility.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think that's something that very many of us. Well, I don't think we've been taught it, and I don't think that very many people do that.
No, and it's. I'm glad you're bringing up that point because when I work with people, I want to give you an example about this because it's a really important piece of the equation. I'll give you an example. I remember one time I was giving a workshop and I was working with a group of women who were wanting to improve the quality of their relationships. And So of course they made, the very first thing I asked was, what is I asked them to talk about the state that their relationship was in. And we got this whole shopping list of problems with their partner. And so then I had them, we created a vision for what they wanted in their relationship to look like. And so then my next question was, who are you being in the relationship that's creating and contributing to the problem that you're seeing?
Don't want to hear that one.
No, they didn't want to see it. It's like, well, what are you talking about? And, then I went, well, who do you need to be to create what you want? And they were like, well, open and loving and caring and kind and giving. And of course, if you're being those things, then that will allow you to do certain things, which will create the outcome you want. So who is it you're being that's creating the problem that you have right now? And it really does come back to being. It's like, who am I being that's creating this challenge I'm seeing in front of me right now? I'm being resistant. I'm being fearful. I'm being lethargic. I'm being negative. I'm being, it's something in how I'm being is causing me to do something or not do something, which is creating the outcome I'm seeing. And the second I take responsibility for that, I can make a conscious choice to be different. I can do that. And I can now be responsible. I can be committed. I can be, enthusiastic. I can be disciplined and create the outcome that I want. So when people really see that, and they don't like seeing it, it's kind of sobering, but when they do see it, then, and they do make a commitment to it, then they can get into action.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Janet, did you want to chime in here?
Oh, of course I do. I was just waiting. I do astrology, Michelle. I do human design astrology, and we often talk about conditioning. And what you were talking about in the very beginning about how we come up through families, we go through schools and so forth, and there's really relatively little conversation that goes on about us really sitting down and talking about what it is we want. In fact, we're taught really we're so conditioned to just pick something, go out there and do it, be a productive citizen, whatever that means, which usually means participate in the economy in some way. Yeah. And it sort of short circuits the conversation about, well, what do I really want? And so then people then begin to open up to that conversation, but then it becomes, well, is that being selfish? Do you ever hear that from people?
Yes, and I do, I get that a lot, actually. And there's a couple of, even just the languaging of this, though, it's what is most important to me and what is most meaningful to me is even a little bit different than what I want, right? Because what I want kind of puts me in my head, and it's like, oh, I really, I want to make a lot of money. I want to have a big house. But if we ask the question in a different way, like, what is most meaningful to me? And, what is my purpose, and what is, what would really allow me to feel fulfilled? It's actually, you might find it's even different than what you think you want. And most people don't know what they want either. If I ask them what they want, they don't know that. They hadn't considered it. But this goes a little bit deeper to, but even this, like even the whole conversation about self-love, people will say, well, that's kind of selfish, and, it's a lot of hyper focus on you. But, if we take a look at, even just at that pie, if we take a look at someone who's operating from a place of feeling of self-loathing and beating themselves up and feeling a lot of shame and a lot of guilt, produce something in the world, but it may not be something that's really contributing greatly to what we need in our society. Where someone who's operating from a place of self-care and self-respect and really and self-knowing and is in more of a position to contribute something. Because only when I'm now that I'm in a place of self-love and learning how to align and stay connected there, I have way more to contribute and way more to give, and I care a lot more about that. When I was in that place of disconnect and self-hatred and self-loathing, I didn't want anything to do with giving anything to anyone else. It's all about getting. It's at that point that that when people are in a lot of pain, they just want something to make the pain go away. So It's all about getting. That's more selfish. So it's really interesting how when we talk about self-love, people say, well, isn't that selfish? It's putting a lot of, it's the exact opposite is true.
Right, right.
But it also goes back to that whole definition of love, because we've been taught that when you love someone, right, it's it's out there somewhere, right?
Right.
It's about something that you do, some way you behave, the words that you say. But there's I see like there's a huge gap there. So.
Yeah, there is a gap there. And, when I'm really connected with that energy, like if we understand that love is actually moving through us and out into the world, then I'm no longer trying to get it from somebody. I actually have it to give. And I will communicate in ways that are probably more authentic. And so I can say something, I can do something, I can give something. But I'm not doing it with expectation of anything in return. I don't have an agenda when it's coming from source. But if I'm feeling disconnected, then now I'm actually looking to get it. I need for you to care about me. I need you to show me that you love me. I need you to respect me. I need you to approve of me, because I'm not approving of myself. And I'm not.
That becomes conditional love then. That's not
it.
That's not
it.
really love. That's all
right.
a bunch of conditions and
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what most people are calling love, right? Is the conditional. And if you really love me, you would do blah, 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 blah. But when I'm operating from a place of self-love, I don't need you to love me or respect me or agree with me, because I do. Right? I already have that. I feel that from the inside, so I don't need it from you. But so if two people are in a place of real self-love and authentic connection, then the partnership, it just becomes, how can we collaborate and create something greater that we can contribute? There's something that between the two of them that they can create that would be greater than either of them could create on their own.
I think it has to start too with people recognizing that there is a problem going on that they're responsible for. Because we can't help but coming through the school systems. We can't help but the families we've come through. Some of the things that parents say, teachers say, and so forth, we take and we believe it's a truth. Yeah. And now we're this person that believes things that maybe aren't completely true about ourselves. Mm-hmm. Whose job is it then to straighten that out? But it's a conversation I don't think we have until we meet up with the pain in a way that causes us to go out and look for someone like you or an astrologer or somebody that, a counselor that can really ask these questions. So what is it that we can be doing in our everyday conversations with people that can bring this to light without having to go to some major extreme to get to that information?
Right. Well, and I think you're pointing to something really kind of interesting too, Janet, is that, it's nobody's fault, right? I mean, we've disconnected from our authentic self by, our parents and our teachers and our culture and our communities have supported it. And so it's nobody's fault necessarily, but it's, as adults, it's our responsibility now to recognize that I'm in pain now, and I have disconnected from my authentic self, and what do I need to do? Like even asking the question, what do I need to do? How can I now align with my life purpose, my authentic self? Even asking that question begins the process of connecting. The things that will really help people, and we're seeing a lot of it now, is people are practicing yoga. That's a way of getting out of the busyness of our mind and our identification with our self-image and connecting with our being. So yoga is a great help. Meditation is a really great way of creating some separation from the busyness of our mind and our identification with that into connecting with my being. Connecting in nature, anything creative really helps to open things up. But also too, like I said, taking the time to sit down and question, like, what is truly important to me? What is most meaningful? And writing it down and beginning the process of creating a vision. And then each day asking, what do I need to do to move in this direction? And if people started just each day taking one step at a time, like what will happen is if you got really clear about what's most meaningful and important and you created the vision, and then you woke up tomorrow and you said, okay, well, what is it I need to do? I promise you, you will be guided to do things that you're not doing already.
Yeah, I have a funny story. This morning,
Yeah.
I was talking to my next door neighbor. She's 83 years old. She goes, "Oh, honey, what's your show about today?" And I said, "Oh, it's about self-love." And she goes, "Are you for or against it?" I said, "Of course I'm for it." And she goes, "Oh, okay, that's good." But I thought that was kind of funny, but maybe something generational there, that maybe that it wasn't okay to love ourselves, that maybe that meant we weren't loving others first. And then I think about how that translates, from her generation to her kids to her grandkids, and that kind of thing. And I just don't think we've ever been said. It's never been said to me. I know for sure. You got to love yourself first.
Right. And I think too, right, it's a generational thing, because I think that generation was more, they collect, there was more socialization, and the family or the tribe was important, and there was more of a connection. And I think now the individuation process, we're kind of stepping away from groups or clans or family and really getting a sense of who we are. And but that generation, they didn't. I mean, I know even my mother, if I ever said to her, I'm focusing on self-love, she'd roll her eyes and say, that she would suggest I was being selfish.
Yeah, it's all about you, isn't it?
All of myself. And yeah, right, it's all about you. And so there is it's interesting, because people say, well, what about narcissists who really love themselves? The truth about that is the narcissist is actually as far away from self-love as you can possibly get. Like they are so disconnected from themselves that there's like a deep and they're trying to figure out, like they're actually doing things to try and create an image of self-love, but there's nothing authentic about any of it. So, and I think that's what happens. I think people are afraid if we start focusing on self-love, we'll become narcissistic. Mm-hmm. But you know what? The exact opposite is true. If we really don't come to a place of self-love, we move further and further and further away from our authentic self, which is the narcissist. Right? So there's nothing narcissistic about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. And I would think that the narcissist is missing something. There's a void there that they're filling up with this fake information of themselves,
right,
making themselves feel better.
Right. They're completely disconnected from their authentic self through pain and trauma. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, not to make them bad or wrong. It's just they're in a lot of pain, and they've disconnected, and they're so far away from their authentic self that narcissists are really deeply insecure, and they've learned how to they've created a self-image that's really strong and charismatic, and they've learned a lot of things. They're smart generally, so they've created a really solid self-image that they've become very good at convincing other people that, and themselves.
How about defining it, or paint a picture of, for instance, someone who's in self-love versus someone who's narcissistic? Because we're using terms, and I really don't have images in my head for either one of those people.
Okay, sure. I'm going to give you an image. I'm going to create, I give you a complete profile of somebody who is deeply connected with their authentic self and is in a place of self-love. So someone who, they understand that goodness, truth, and beauty are seeking expression through us. Those who are available to receive it experience self-love. They feel alive and energized and spontaneous and excited about life. They're deeply connected to their authentic self, and they easily connect with others. They choose careers that inspire them. They're doing what they love and loving what they do. They're sharing their talents and gifts with the world. They're thriving, and they know that they make a difference. They're operating from a place of abundance. They trust that things will unfold as they're meant to. They experience and express a full range of emotions. They understand that vulnerability is power. They attract a life partner who loves and respects them as they love and respect themselves, because they give love freely. They present themselves as strong and confident and grounded and caring, humble human beings. They cope well with change and challenge. They're clear about their intentions. They're unwavering in their commitment to their vision and their goals. They face everything and avoid nothing. They communicate clearly, directly, and honestly. They have compassion and forgiveness for themselves and for others. They ask for and receive support when they need it. They feel comfortable in their own skin. They treat themselves with respect, and they command respect from others. They take calculated risks for the right reasons, regardless of what others think. They approve of themselves, and they don't need approval from others. They manage their time efficiently and effectively. They do whatever it takes to keep their body fit and healthy. They focus on the highest priorities in their life. They are empowered. They live life on purpose and with passion. They have a strong desire to contribute for the greater good. They're decisive, and every single choice they make is aligned with their deepest core values. They consistently push their edge and step outside of their comfort zone. They're naturally creative and innovative. They consistently grow and use more of their potential, and success naturally finds them. They let their heart guide them forward. They value their time, and they set boundaries. They take full responsibility for what happens in their life. They see the beauty in others. So that's kind of a profile of somebody who's really deeply connected with their authentic self.
Have you ever met one of those people outside of a Harlequin romance?
I know, that's the list. I was about to say that. So you will see.
Excuse me, except Roger, apparently. He's
Roger.
Here would be my actual observation.
Yeah.
To many of us, I can actually say honestly that I have experienced the bulk of that list, but not in a sustained way.
Yeah.
That's a huge relationship, right? It's about developing where even a knowing that that's possible, that I have been in those moments at times is, steps above. Has that been your experience with your clients too? Are we really aiming for that is that where we're heading and recognizing perfection at every step? Or are we really saying you're going to have to get there?
So it's not about being perfect. It's just kind of, I was creating a profile. I don't know anyone who's like this, by the way. And I just thought, I really sat down and thought about it. If we were really completely aligned with our deepest knowing, with our intuition, with our creative intelligence, and we were moving in that direction, what would it look like? So that's how I came up with, this list. And we do see people who are moving in this direction, who are more aligned with this, right? But the truth is that even when you are really aligned, like I was showing that picture of the pie, right? So the dark blue part would be someone who's more aligned with their deeper inner knowing. But it's not that we're one or the other. Like we always have our authentic self, and we always have our self-image. And often we oscillate between the two. Like there's some times where I feel really aligned with this. And there's other times where I am completely running, my programming and conditioning is running. And I've been triggered, someone's, triggered me, and I'm in reaction mode. So we oscillate back and forth. And so it's not a matter of getting rid of one, because you can't get rid of it. You can't get rid of it anyways. But it's like, which one is driving? Which one is leading in my life? Am I leading from my authentic self, or am I leading from my conditioned and programmed self?
Sure.
And that's, right? We get to choose that. And it's not about being perfect, and it's not about, and ultimately, could we align with that entire list? I'm not sure. We'll see.
Well, I think I have one of those life paths where I think the idea of self-love has taken the most extreme face, in that I've had a lifelong struggle. It's over now, with anorexia and bulimia. Okay. So eating disorders, there's a lot of severe behavior that comes from different challenges we all might have. But I did find that the core of eating disorders in everyone I know and myself comes from a crisis point over self-love.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Really work it through on such a severe level. The one thing that I didn't hear you mention, or not in ways that I recognized, was that fundamentally you did mention that it has been powerful for me is I have to believe in a beneficent force. Yeah. There has to be be a force beyond my own ability to bring about my own well-being that is working, co-creating with me. And therefore, whether it's the grace of God, the belief in something higher, the belief that goodness exists, it doesn't matter what it is, but it also is self-acceptance. Because at no time have I been able to reconcile to much of what you described, even going back and forth from the personality or the external self to the soul. It also taught me, though, that in the relationship of building that relationship and building a life where that was engaged, all steps had merit. This was not, and to some extent, all my family are teachers. And I thought, really, could we line up a bunch of 10-year-olds and say, what is it you want out of life? Well, we want to play. Well, no.
Right.
Let's talk to your inner knowing. What would your inner knowing like right now? Well, we'd like to play. There's a point at which no matter what we do, there is no school system, I think, that would necessarily, it takes time. It takes time and experience and exploration and error and mistake and unhappiness and joy. And all of those things presumably have to be in play, even if my conditioning is completely supportive and conducive to me having that relationship. So I think some of what's shifting for us now might more be how we're framing that exploration rather than whether or not it exists. I don't know that there's a human being who's born and raised in such a way that their inner knowing never has them trying and, going through a series of experiments and recognizing both failure and successes as part of the necessary path. Therefore, acceptance that I can be in this grace and participating, even if I decide I've created something that isn't serving me or others. I may have created, something I believe is an ill. I have to be able to not only take responsibility or an ill for myself, right? That great pain of the real truth when you wake up from that illusionary state of all that conditioning and realize what you've been doing to yourself.
Yeah.
Horribly painful to see what we've done to ourselves as a result of this, regardless of the responsibilities we have to others.
Yeah.
Acceptance has been a big key of saying, I love myself and accept.
Yeah.
If I'm facing, flaw, got a problem. I see.
One of the other things that, I had a really difficult time trying to figure out what self-love meant. And the other thing I had a really tough time with was figuring out, like, people used to say to me, just let it go.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean? And so what I came to understand about that, and it's such an important thing to understand, is that, because I used to think it was just put it out of your head, right? And that was more like sweeping it under the rug, or acting like it's not happening, or think positive. But what I came to understand is that it's taking a look at everything in our lives, and that it's complete self-acceptance. It's letting everything be just as it is. Mm-hmm. Like, if I can take a look at myself and say, this is not about being perfect. This is about saying, you know what, I have failed at certain things in my life, and I can recognize it. I can take a look at that just as a fact. I don't have to make it mean something about me. I don't have to make it mean I'm a bad person, or I'm stupid, or I'm not good enough. It's a fact. Yes, I failed. That's letting it go and letting it be the way it is. Yeah, I've made mistakes and I've hurt people. And, that I can acknowledge that. I don't have to make it mean something like that I'm a disgrace or I'm a unworthy human being. It's the stories that we make up about all of that stuff that puts us in a place where we're not accepting ourselves. We are all experimenting, and we are all being challenged, and we're all in a system. And can I get to a place where I can let things go and just let things be as they are? And when I do, now I can respond from a really healthy place, right? Rather than being in reaction mode. So none of this is about being perfect. It really is just being in a place of our heart where we can be guided from a very different place, where we can make different choices that start to feel more aligned, so that we feel we're gaining some traction in life, that we're feeling like it is self-acceptance. It really is. Like, when we can stop judging ourselves and making the mistakes in our life mean something negative about us, that is self-acceptance. And that is self-love. So self-love is not about being perfect at all. It's about It's about knowing we do make mistakes. And trust me, I mean, I've got all of mine. It's doing the shadow work. I mean, shadow work is it's about bringing the light of consciousness to the places where we've cut off, the places that are not acceptable in us, and really honoring and accepting all of it and loving all of it. That's ultimately the ultimate self-love, is seeing all our flaws, all our shortcomings, all the errors in our ways, and loving all of it. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying is really important. I think the fact, there's that inner child aspect of all of us that runs the show most of the time, that I think you could label as the shadow. Right? And I was listening to this guy talk a while back, and he was referring to the inner child as being a real badass. Because the longer that you put off doing your inner child work, the more that inner child is going to start screaming and yelling and causing more and more problems, to the point where everything in your life will come to a crashing halt, basically, so that it gets your attention. And once it gets your attention, then you can start doing the shadow work that will then let go of the judgment of yourself, and I'm not this, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, whatever it is. So, I think that the shadow aspect of anything is the key, and it's the one that gets the most, it gets glossed over more often than not.
Yeah. And that's, it's one of the great barriers, is that people don't want to look, because we have so much judgment about ourselves, right? I mean, talking about the separation and the conditioning and programming again, is that, growing up, we're conditioned and we're taught that, if you behave in these ways, then you'll be acceptable, that you'll fit in and you'll get approval and you'll get love. But there's a part of me that doesn't really, a very natural part of me that is kind of greedy and is selfish and is, wants other things, and I want to behave in different ways, and I want to be a badass sometimes, and that all of it is acceptable, and there's nothing wrong with any of it. Some of it's going to cause. I mean, if we could look at, I really learned to look at it like some of it is low consciousness behaviors and things, and some of it is higher consciousness. But instead of looking at it as good or bad, and making a judgment about it in that way. And if we could just take a look at, and it's about bringing the stuff we've hidden about ourselves, and the stuff we don't want anyone else to know, and the things we feel shame about, and the things we feel guilt about, and the things that we're hiding from ourselves and from others, bringing that forth and saying, yeah, these are things that were part of my life, and this is part of who I am, and I can love and accept that. I mean, we're far less likely to act it out again when we really own it and love it than we are when we're trying to hide it. It starts running us, right?
Yeah. Right. I think too, as you're talking, the thing that popped into my head is like, imagine just like taking this kid, right, and dumping all of the things that we've done, that have been dumped on us, on this kid, and keep them locked in a closet, right, and tell them how bad they are, how stupid they are, how unworthy they are. All of this, all the messages that we get. Can you imagine, like, you'd be like put in jail for like the next 1,000 years for child abuse? Exactly.
Oh, we would never let anyone treat us the way we treat ourselves.
Right.
We wouldn't tolerate it for a minute. The other thing too, every single one of my clients, and I will say this without exception, and I've been doing this work for over 20 years now, there isn't a person that I've met that doesn't have some story, like at the root of their, whatever their challenges they're facing in their life, is some belief about themselves that I'm not good enough, that I'm not valuable enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't have enough, there's something about not enough. And it's, their worth is in question with that belief. And then I'll ask them, well, what did you do to make that made you not good enough? And they'll kind of sit and think about it. And then I'll say, well, how long have you been feeling like that? Is it recent? And they'll say, no. And they'll sit there and think, and then they'll know, I've felt like this my whole life. Like, yep, that's true. Mm-hmm. Where did it start? And it's like, well, do you remember when you were in kindergarten? And they'll go, Yeah, I remember it early in school. It was there. That feeling was there, and I was like, okay. So what I do is I'll say, well, let's just imagine for a moment. I'll just invite everybody to do it. It's just imagine a whole field full of little children, little 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old children, and they're all sitting there quietly looking at you. You're walking around, taking in their faces and their expressions, and I want you to go, like, there's hundreds of them, and I want you to go and pick every single one who's not worthy or not good enough. How many did you get?
Just Roger.
Just Roger. Poor Roger.
He said he could take it.
Really?
It's completely ridiculous, right? Would you ever look at any little child and say you're not good enough, and you're not? I mean, we all pick the message up somewhere, right? But as it started when we were very young, and we're still holding on. We're still operating from that belief that there's something inherently wrong with me, and I'm not good enough, or I'm not valuable enough, and we're still operating with it. We haven't questioned it. We didn't question where it came from, or could it be true? And there's not a little child on this planet that's not good enough or worthy enough. It's just not true. When we look at little children, we would know in a minute as an adult that story is just not true. But as adults, we still believe it's true. We're still operating with a belief somewhere that there's something wrong with us.
Well, that's an interesting exercise, though, because I could also say I've never met an adult who's not worthy enough or good enough.
That's
and
right.
It's really as adult behaviors that we are most likely to project that onto each other, right? If you lined up the same 100 people, I don't know if we could all leap to the point of compassion to really and truly say, yep, they're all great. Even the one with the crack pipe. When he puts it down, he's awesome.
Exactly.
That was what I was going to ask, is what if we put 100 adults in the same field,
right,
and ask, well, okay, then let's make the child choose, because is the child going to choose who's worthy or not worthy? Probably not. But if you put an adult out there to choose, then those things like the crack pipe, or their hair's too long, or they're fat, they're skinny, they're black, they're white, they're pink, whatever, those kinds of things start coming into play based on the conditioning of that person's life. But none of that is true at all. I mean, everybody is worthy.
Exactly. And here's the interesting point about is that the more I love and accept myself, the more likely I am to look out and go, yep, every single one of them is awesome and they're worth it.
I know. The less less you participate with the world as if I am a victim, the fewer true victims I see.
Yeah. So the things that we don't like about ourselves, we will see in others, and we'll just go, well, yeah, they're all worth it except for that one. Because they're displaying something I don't like about me, right? So,
or they're a murderer, or they've been in jail, or
we can't. There isn't. I mean, that's not a judgment call, but it is also important to have discernment. I mean, to not expect a crocodile to not be a crocodile. I may say, I may still decide, listen, I get you have a crack pipe, and I don't think you need to express yourself this way if you should choose to do it differently. But you are the animal that you are. And therefore, my respect for myself and self-love says, I don't have to judge you, but I probably don't want to hand you my wallet.
No, that's right. Exactly.
Or put you in the same room with my children.
Right.
Possibly, right.
Well, exactly. That's right. But you can still see, it's interesting we're saying that, because I just spent 2 years teaching yoga at an addiction treatment center. And, and every single day when I went in there and I sat, and they're most of them are real in a place of deep shame and self-hatred. And I could see in them, because I would look at them, but I wouldn't see their addiction. I would look at the part of them that is healthy and whole and lovable, and I would speak to that and call it out, and they would get it. And I mean, it was kind of hard for them to get it sometimes, but I would see it in their faces. Their faces would light up. So, and that, it doesn't matter how far away from ourselves, it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe at the extreme is, a drug addiction or a really intense addiction. They can still connect in 1 second with their authentic self and begin the process of finding their way back to health and wholeness.
Yeah.
It's there. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, I remember at the end of a class one time, leading a meditation where I invited them to connect with that part of them. And I told them it's still there. Like, the part of you that, is creative and intelligent and strong and beautiful. And it's still there. And I know a lot of times you would see them crying, like they're moved to tears because there's some recognition that it is there. And then I remember one time coming out of the meditation, and this one man, he just put his head down. He goes, those were really nice words and I'd like to believe it, but I'm just not there right now. He's like, I've just hurt too many people and made too many mistakes. And I know they feel that. And that might even be true, but I think you're far more likely to heal if you really connect with that part of you that is still whole and complete. If you can really get that, I think that you can even go back and make amends and be more effective at bringing things back into balance again if you're operating from a place of self-love to start with, rather than thinking, I actually have to go and fix all of this and make everything better before I deserve to have love and belonging.
Right.
Right.
And, to that, in that same process, through recovery through addiction, it's really, it's always true, but that's a great example of how it honestly takes other human beings who know what we're feeling and have been where we are to say, no, you know what, you still have worth. It's almost impossible to get through that level of the shame, guilt, no matter where it comes from, whether it comes from a completely arbitrary religious system who's taken all my behavior and framed it that way, or whether I've actually transgressed against others. Other people who have been where I am and have, in fact, moved through it to the point of understanding that we all still have worth. We have to mirror it for one another. And so, to that end, I think really facing this down, and facing it down, I guess, is a harsh term, but, embodying it and doing the work of just being willing to say, I'm willing to ask, does this in fact make me unlovable? And raising it up, to a higher energy inside of myself, while knowing I can't assure myself of the answer. Traditionally, I know what the answer is, but not in the moment. Right? We're always running that place that thinks, oh no, for sure this time. Oh geez, now I've been revealed to be this, and it's not going to. I've gotten as far as I'm going.
Yeah.
Well, a part of that too is because we tend to judge ourselves and others based on what we do, as opposed to who we be. And I always try to remind people that you're a human being, not a human doing. Mm-hmm. Your intrinsic value isn't based on what you're doing in the world. It's who you really are. And who there's that divine piece of every person on this planet that is the truth, not the things that they've done, because everybody in a moment can make a wrong decision or be in the wrong place at the wrong time, or, it's just, we have to get back to that intrinsic value, that there isn't something you have to do that makes you good.
But hang on, because, that's true, Janet. But as Michelle pointed out, and I think we would all agree, the truth of this is that personal accountability piece. I have to bring my actions into alignment with my self-love. So just sitting, how many other people are out there who are claiming or feeling self-love, but they haven't begun to back it up with behavior toward themselves or others that's consistent with that. So we have the cognitive dissonance where, to some extent, it's not that what we do is what we are, but we need this to be in practice. This is not a thought or even a feeling. It is about actions toward ourselves in the world, because that's what creates the path, the relationship, the persona, the ripple effect outside of us.
Yeah. And acknowledging too, even, I think one of the greatest challenges that I see with people when they come, there's things going on in their life that there's the situations that are going on, and then there's the story that we make up about the situations that are going on. So if it's something, even if it's something that we did that we don't feel good about, people will say, well, I did this, and, it hurt somebody else, or it created this problem. And, they make up some story. They make it mean something about them. I'm a failure. Or I'm not good enough. We've got a story. And if we can, I often ask people, okay, let's just give me the facts. So what are the facts? The facts are you behaved in this way and you don't feel good about it. And the facts are that maybe it caused some problem for somebody else. And here's, so we write down what the facts are. And then I say, okay, would drop all the judgment about it and just look at it. And now what do you need to do? And from that place, as soon as they drop all the judgment and all the story, they are connected with their deeper inner knowing, and they know exactly what they need to do. So now you can actually take action and bring it right, make it right, go make amends, correct it.
Right.
You know, but when we're in a place of self-judgment, and like people will say to me, if I drop all the guilt and I stop judging myself, like that's the one that people have a really tough time with. I'll say, well, just drop all the judgment. They'll say, but if I don't judge myself, then I won't behave any better, right? And it's like, okay, is the judgment actually helping? Did it help you to change this thing? And they're just like, no, I'm actually stuck in it. Like, right. So the judgment, like, the judgment is not useful. I mean, it's useful for us to see that our behavior may be out of alignment. But beyond that, it's like, now just bring it back into alignment. But we judge ourselves, we beat ourselves up, we feel guilt, we feel shame, and that causes us to stay stuck. And then we get stuck in this self-hatred. But when we can drop all the judgment and just see the truth about it, then there's an opportunity for us to do something different and to come back into alignment and feel good about who we are and what we're doing.
So it's just an awareness of what we did. And if you could stay neutral to it and not attach to it, then you can observe it and be aware of it the next time that opportunity presents itself.
Right.
So I have a question. Besides judgment, what other barriers are there to self-love?
Well, fear, you know, is a big one, right? So, you know, self-love in the way that we're talking about it here today is that, you know, the acknowledgement of a connection with something greater than myself, first of all, and allowing that to move through me and inform my thoughts, my decisions, my actions. And if I'm, if the moment I'm in, you know, my intuition is informing me to step out of my comfort zone and do something different, and if we really are aligned, it will. If I get into fear, and you probably will feel fear, but if you contract with the fear, then that's going to act as a barrier, because you will just go right back into your comfort zone and operate from your self-image again. So it's fear of the unknown, it's fear of rejection, and fear of loneliness. Those are three of the three big fears. So people, what's that?
Can you repeat those?
Yeah. So one is fear of the unknown. The other one is fear of rejection. And the third one is fear of loneliness.
Okay.
Fear of being alone, right? So, you know, a lot of people, it's an interesting, that one always really kind of surprised me, the fear of being alone. Because I found that a lot of people that I was doing work with, once they started to peel the layers of, especially with addictions and eating disorders of any kind, I was finding this, where people, once they peeled back the later layers and got to it, they right at the root of it, they said, I feel really lonely. And I'm surrounded by people. I have a big family, I have friends around me, and I feel very alone. And, you know, and there's this fear about being alone. There's this fear about being rejected and a fear about, you know, being alone. But a lot of people are alone even when they're surrounded by people, because no one sees them. Because we're not being authentic. We're not letting people see the real us. We're not revealing, we're not being vulnerable and real and honest enough to really connect with and let people in, so we feel alone. So our fear, and then we surround ourselves by people, or we do people-pleasing things to get people to like us and get people to, you know, acknowledge us or approve of us. So that causes us to behave in ways that are not consistent with our most authentic self. And then, of course, the fear of rejection. If I step out of my comfort zone and I connect with my intuition, and my intuition invites me or suggests I do something that's out of the ordinary, there's a chance that I could get rejected, right?
Sure.
So, and you know what? And you may get rejected. It's quite possible, actually, that if you're living fully and you're moving forward with every idea and opportunity that presents itself, at some point you're going to get rejected in some way, shape, or form. I think the important thing is not to reject ourselves. But so we have this fear of rejection, and one of the practices that I have, like I wake up in the morning and before I even get out of bed, I'll say to myself, my intention right now is to drop all judgment. So I'm going to drop all judgment of myself. And immediately when I say it, I just feel everything relax because it's kind of operating all in the background without us even knowing. So my intention is to drop all judgment of myself and to drop all judgment of others. And then I'm in a quiet, very calm place. And then I'll ask if I had no attachment to any outcome at all. And if I had no resistance at all, what would I do? So, and then it will be, okay, well, I'll continue working on a program, or I always get some information about what I need to go do. And immediately, as soon as we start to do things that are out of our comfort zone, self-doubt creeps in. There's another barrier. Our worries and concerns about, obviously about rejection and what other people are going to think about us. And, so judgment is a huge one. Judgment, attachment, and resistance. Those three things are really great barriers to self-love and self-fulfillment.
I was talking to this to Bob, who who's in our coaching circle the other day, and we were talking about how when he was really first starting out in the consulting business, he went with some older guys, and they got basically rejected from this meeting. And as they were leaving, one of the older guys says, "It's okay, I've been thrown out of better places than this," which set the tone for the rest of his career and being, not worrying about being rejected. But you're right. I mean, I think that's a huge one,
Yeah. I remember one time, one of my teachers, he just did me the biggest favor, but it was a harsh kind of a shakeup. I was in a workshop one time, and there was 35 people there. And these were all people in my community, people I knew. And he sat right in front of me, and he did this process we were using. He did it, with a person sitting right in front of him with the whole room present. And he just looked at me right away, and he's like, I had just met him. He's like, he looked at me and he goes, "Half the people in this room don't like you." And I'm like, "That's not true." He's like, "Yeah, it is actually." And he goes, I'm like, "No, it isn't actually, because I worked really, really hard to make sure people liked me. I was the biggest kiss-ass people pleaser going. So I worked hard at this. So don't tell me that these people don't like me, because I know they do." And he's like, "No, they don't actually. Half of them don't like you." And I was going to get up and leave actually. And then he said, "Do you want me to take a poll?" And I was like, "No." Because if anyone puts their hand up, I'm just going to fall off my seat right now. And he said, "Michelle, half the people are not going to like you no matter what you do. So, he goes, if you're yourself, if you're being authentic and you're speaking your truth and you're direct and honest in your communication, people are not, there's going to be people who don't like you for being who you are, because you're honest and direct and strong and powerful. And there will be people who don't like you for that." And then he said, and there's half of the people in this room, I promise you, don't like you because you are a kiss-ass people pleaser. You're a doormat. And not only that, but the worst part of the story is that you don't like yourself because you're doing those things. And it's not who you are. And besides, no one in this room could possibly like who you really are, because no one really knows who you are, because you don't show that. And that day, the whole people-pleasing thing stopped. It's like, that's it. I am going to be myself. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to speak up. I'm going to set boundaries. I'm going to be who I am. And I'm going to, and the more I came into alignment with that, the more I really started to like myself. The more self-respect I had, the more I started to gain strength and confidence. And it was difficult. It was difficult moving from being that way to being, who I was. But it was really important. And it was just such a great lesson to get. That people aren't going to like it. We're so worried about people liking us and what they think. Half the people are not going to like you no matter what you do. So I just remember that every single time. So I don't worry so much about that anymore.
Thanks for sharing that. I guess I can let go of that fantasy that everybody's going to like me.
Right.
We could have helped you with that, Roger.
You already have.
Yeah, thanks. I actually heard the numbers differently. I heard 1/3 of the people will feel strongly about what you have to say and won't like it, but another full third won't care one way or the other. So
Right.
the other part of rejection is that we're not hitting the radar at all. You don't see me, you don't recognize me. What I have to say is, absolutely not connecting at all. So it's really
Right.
only a third, presumably. And like this person was sharing it with their collective experience online, and the kind, which is eliciting more and more of the reactions, right? We're now in a far more dynamic world of people deciding to post comments on how they feel about what we're doing.
Yeah.
And really, it's only a third of the people. If you get a third of the people who are responding positively, you have hit it out of the park. Much
Right.
more baseball odds than the football odds.
Right. Good.
Does that make you feel better, Roger? 1/3. That's what you're aiming for, man.
No, I want a half.
If one of us likes it, you're doing good.
Half seems better, doesn't it?
Half of nothing is still nothing.
I was thinking with 1/3, you only need one of your co-hosts to like you any particular day, right? You can get Janet or Andrew or I, and you've nailed it, man.
Where's Andrew? Thanks, Janet.
Sorry. I'm not usually mean. I can't be.
You can't help yourself.
So it's not really true. Oh, Mel says, or Biggie says he loves you. He sticks up for you.
That's right.
So how does this disconnect happen?
So, some of the ways I've mentioned already, it's it starts early in childhood, right? I mean, it's if we grew up in homes where there's any kind of neglect or abuse or trauma, which we see in a lot of cases, then we disconnect and we contract. And then if children are getting the message that parts of them are not okay, if I, want, if I'm displaying, children want all the cookies, we're being told we're greedy, be a nice girl, the good girls don't talk like that, or behave in this way, or, we're being molded and shaped into fitting in, taught to conform. The disconnect starts to happen. It's just that we're not really being able to express who we are. And the further, and then of course, as I mentioned too, going to school, could be kids in school, there's cliques, we want to fit in, we maybe have some, if there was bullying at school, then we don't feel so good about ourselves. And even as adults, I mean, here's an interesting thing that I see a lot and I hear a lot. We're making a decision to do something in our life, and I'll hear people say, I knew it in my gut that I shouldn't have done it, and I did it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So right there is the disconnect. And then it's like we're driving along, we're going in the right direction, and all of a sudden we get this signal, and we're going to take a left turn, and there's this knowing, it's like, no, don't turn left. Keep going straight. And we turn left anyway. And then we keep going, and we keep going, and we keep going, and we keep going, right? And then the further away you get, the more anxious you get, the more depressed you get, the more fearful you get, the more, because you just the further away from your true self that you get, the more pain it causes. So it's a matter now of like, how do I turn around and come back? How do we get back home? And this is what I'm saying when I said there's a real longing now, because I think people are knowing it's like we're so far away from who we are. One of the examples I'll give is like, I think, I grew up in a home where there was, there was a lot of abuse. My father was an alcoholic, and there was, trauma and abuse and neglect. And as a teenager, I was really struggling with knowing who I was. I mean, it couldn't be any further away from, the confidence or knowing who I was. And as a young adult, I made a conscious decision that if I, got a good enough job and made enough money, that was going to be my salvation. And so I established myself in a fairly high profile career at an early age. And, at 24 years old, I was an equities trader at a financial services company. And I did that for 6 years, and everything that I thought was going to make me happy started to come into alignment. Like I lived in a nice area. I was getting around with the right people. The things were starting to come into, the material stuff was starting to come. And I was so unhappy. And I couldn't figure it out. It's like, okay, do I just need more? Do I need to work harder? Do I need to make more money? Do I need to get more education? It was always about, how much more can I do so that I can feel better about who I am? Until one day I just really got it, that there's something wrong with the whole picture. This has nothing to do with me. And so then it was, like I had taken the turn down the wrong road, and now it's like I was turning around and starting to come back. And it was a gradual process of one step at a time, one decision at a time, just consistently keep moving, and then you get more grounded. You start to feel better. You start to have more confidence. You start to experience more fulfillment. And there is, people now are looking for trying to find the way back. It's like, how do I turn around now? How do I get from, this place of disconnect back to an experience that is more fulfilling and meaningful, and so that I can contribute in a greater way as well. So the 10 steps that we went through are the beginning of that process.
Would you say that you were a narcissist, like that guy Jordan? What was his name? Balfour. That the movie about?
Like the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, because Bryn, that's it. Like the epitome of a narcissist. I don't know. Did you see it?
Yeah, I did actually.
Bryn,
yeah,
borrowed the Coke lunch and turned it off.
Oh no!
That was gross, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, I mean, I wasn't that bad, but I saw lots of that go down, honestly. And I'm not going to say that I wasn't kind of aligned with it, but I can honestly say that if I didn't wake up when I did, like what happened to me actually when I was 29 years old, I had a really profound, a mystical experience that took me out of my programming and conditioning into my authentic self. And I was in a state of illumination for about a year. So if that hadn't happened, I'm absolutely, probably would have ended up quite like some of and that's when I left that career, and I went from being a stockbroker to a yoga teacher.
See, she's more Jerry Maguire than Wolf of Wall Street. I like.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, come on. Jeez.
So Michelle, how do you, or what is it that you do in your daily life that supports your self-love? I mean, and give us other things that we can do as well, besides these 10 steps. I mean,
right. So honestly, I really do think that the first thing is knowing what's most important to you and really getting clear about what your values are. And then everything that you do, I mean, honestly, everything, like you can, I will set a really clear intention for myself. Like say if I wanted to make sure, I mean, I take really good care of my body. I'm not perfect, and I'm not, I mean, it's not that there's no room for getting out of line, but my health is priority number one for me. So I take good care of my health. I practice yoga. I do meditate. I process emotional stuff as it comes up. I have tools that I use that I teach people to help process emotional things. I'm really committed to just being present with whatever's going on. When I am making decisions, I check in and just ask, is this for my highest good? When I do ask that, I'm more likely to make the choices and decisions that are for my greatest good. And when I don't, it's not to say that I never, I do things, I kind of get busy and I forget some of the tools and I do things mindlessly and then have to back up again for sure. But when I'm being conscious of it and I'm being aware, I'm asking the question, like even in my health, what would be for my greatest good? There may be, I might not feel like exercising, and then I'll think, well, is it for my greatest good to not do it? And it's like, well, no, it's my, if I'm really focused on my greatest good, I would go and do that. And then I'll go and do it. I just won't even question it. I will go and do it. And then even just looking at any area of your life, like you can look even at, like pushing our edge. I'm a bit of an introvert. No, I'm not a bit of an introvert. I'm a total introvert and a bit of a homebody. So one of the things that I did recently was I signed up for an improv class, because it's as far away from and it's teaching me how to be more spontaneous, and how to connect with people and have fun. I really enjoyed that. I'm making a conscious, it's being more aware of the decisions that you make and why you're making them, instead of just being, because like I said, if we're not being conscious, we'll just continue to repeat the same patterns and behaviors that we've been engaged in all along, which are part of our programming and conditioning. So we actually need to be conscious and aware. I think meditation is really important, because it gives us that initial separation from identification with our thinking and our programming and conditioning. It's asking. I use a tool called the Life Wheel in coaching, and I would encourage people to get really clear what's most important to them in every single area, and then pick one.
What's a life wheel? Tell us about that.
Right. So it's just taking a look at all the different areas of your life, right? So it's a pie, but it's in 8 pieces. So there's career, finances, family and friends, primary relationship, our spiritual development, mental development, physical and emotional health, fun and relaxation. And what I do when I'm working with people as a coach, the very first thing I do is I ask them to rate their level of satisfaction in each of those areas on a scale of 1 to 10. And it's a quick snapshot of where you're at in your life. And so if you see one of those areas is low, then you can ask, well, what's going on here? And what is it I need to do to, what's important to me here? What am I doing that's causing this area to not be so satisfying? What actions and what things can I put in place that would allow me to move in the direction of my greatest good in this area? So you can bring a little bit more focus, set some goals that help you make conscious choices to do things differently, to connect with your intuition and ask, what is for my greatest good right now? And then having the courage to act on it. And every single time you make a decision like that, like when you really connect with your heart and your intuition and you ask, what is it that I need to do? When you take the step, like having the insight about anything is really just the first step, and the knowing about it's like, okay, yeah, that's what I need to do. When you act on it, that's how transformation happens. And every single time you do that, you gain strength, you gain courage, you gain traction, you gain a stronger sense of who you are. You actually strengthen your soul by doing that. And so if I could, suggest just one thing, it's that. It's really just learn to tune in and ask, what's for my greatest good here? And, or how can I, if I was moving in the direction of my highest potential, what action would I take? And the second you ask the question, you'll get an answer. You will know what it is you need to do. And whether
you just have to have the courage to do what it is that you need to do.
Yes.
At that point. Mm-hmm.
And then do it. And if you do, that's how change happens. Right? Because often your intuition is going to tell you to do something that might be that will cause you to step outside of your comfort zone. And every time you step outside your comfort zone, you grow, right? You start to realize more of your potential, and you start to gain confidence and strength.
Yeah. Good.
So my experience, however, is that, I would have to emphasize the physical well-being above some of the other things you're talking about. I know, Janet and I both work with people as astrologers. So we're working with them quite often with problematic areas of their lives, but we're working with them on a soul level. Mm-hmm. And I invariably will see that you can engage things you believe are in your best interest. You can engage in thoughts and potentials, but it doesn't necessarily make it something in your best interest if your body is not balancing. Our body is our balancing agent for our thoughts and our emotions, to include the fact that our thoughts and emotions are responsive. They're not originating. So they are still responsive and, to our stimuli. So back to I don't think we can overemphasize what physical alignment and well-being is. And it doesn't necessarily mean, eating organically and vegan and whatever. I mean, for some people it does. But there's a huge amount to be said for sleeping and shitting. If your diet is not allowing you to shit every day, you should probably have a look at your diet. And if you're not sleeping every night or getting some fresh air and taking a walk 5 times a week, If you took just those simple steps, most people come into a huge new relationship with self-care. Funny enough, as often as this has come up lately about self-love, self-acceptance, and where I've talked to people, there's also a little trick that I've worked, and it's a simple trick, but it's, again, pretty basic physical stuff. Go to the bathroom when you have to. It's amazing how often, like, it sounds goofy. I know that, it sounds well vibrationally below what we're talking about. But on a simple level of self-care, self-love, how many times we're putting off doing something as simple as going to the bathroom when we needed to? We're busy. We don't want to do it. We don't want to get up. We're going to finish that particular report. We're going to blah, 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 blah. What happens if you go every time when you actually need to? Because those little actions of backing up the most basic levels of our self-care. It's consistent with another theme, which is quite often we're missing the basics. It's not higher, more sophisticated levels of this that we're lacking. It's that we've somehow, in many areas of our consciousness all over the place, the basics are the great solution, not the high PhD level sophisticated algorithm that told us how to be in self-love.
Right. And I agree with you, because when I'm working with people, the very first place I start is on their physical health, because I say it's difficult to do well in anything if you don't feel well, for sure. And that comes back to this whole thing about grow into what we know. And we all know, I think when it comes to our physical health, I'm not saying everybody knows exactly what they need to do, but we have a lot of information about keeping our body balanced. We know we need to eat well. We know we need to exercise. We know we need to get ample sleep. We need to hydrate. We need fresh air. And just by doing those basic things, for sure, that can be the starting place of a big turn for a lot of people. And then from there, then you take that energy and that enthusiasm. It's really important that we create the conditions for, I read that passage by Martha Graham, that there is a vitality, an energy, a quickening that's moving through us. We need to create the conditions so it can move through us.
Right.
Physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's the starting place.
Yep.
Is really, what is it I need to, what can I move away from, and what can I move toward? That would really bring, me into a stronger place physically, and take a look at that mentally, take a look at it emotionally, and spiritually as well. And that creates the conditions, the really fertile soil for everything else growing up from there. So that's, the starting places, those 4 areas for sure.
Nice. Now, Michelle, do you have classes, or are you an individual coach? Or if people want to get a hold of you and talk more about this with you personally, can they do that?
Yep. My website is at michelleburns.ca. And I do have classes. I have group programs that I run. I work with people individually. And I have, one of the programs that I'm working on right now is called Ignite Your Brilliance.
That's the one I saw.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's starting with self-love. So it is working on all of these steps. And it's the very first part of the program. It's actually a whole year-long program, but it's starting first with the creating the conditions, the mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. So there's information on my website at michelleburns.ca.
.ca. Canada?
.ca. Yes, that's important. It's .ca. Yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle, are you in Vancouver?
No, actually, I'm in Prince Edward Island, on the very other side of the country.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's why it's getting dark where you are and not where we are.
Yeah.
We're at the other end of the United States from you.
That's right.
Yeah, all of us are in Washington.
Oh, right. Yeah.
In fact, within a stone's throw, basically, of all of us. Great. So in any last words of wisdom that you'd like to leave with our audience today?
Yeah. As I'm saying, I just think that there's a few access points. That's the other thing I want to mention too. The self-love that we're, this connection to this great wealth of love and enthusiasm and joy and everything. It's there already. We don't, and our worth, it's our worth and our value is not in question. It's available for all of us. And it's the moment we just make a conscious choice, the moment we decide to tune in, it's right there. And people really are longing for this connection, and to just know that, no matter what we've done, no matter what, how bad we think we are, we all deserve it. And I know when people are really feeling down, they don't believe that. I know I didn't believe that for a long time. And everyone kept telling me, it's like, there's nothing wrong with you and you deserve it. And I didn't believe it for the longest time. And it's true. It's true no matter what you believe. The interesting thing is, I mentioned that I had that awakened experience when I was probably at the worst I could have ever been in my whole life, right? I mean, if there was a person more undeserving and unworthy of having a mystical experience at that point, it was me. And it happened to me. So I know, being a good person and being worthy has nothing to do with it. So it's there all the time. We can connect with it, and you can. You're worth it. There's nothing wrong with any of us. Like we don't need to be fixed. There's no place that we have to get to. And in terms of access points of really connecting with it, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. Like vulnerability is such an important access point to connecting with it, because that's what really allows us to connect with ourselves first. It's acknowledging that, I'm struggling right now. I'm having this experience, or I'm going through some emotional pain. It's letting people know who we are, what we're about, sharing ourselves with others. And it's not about necessarily being emotional, but it's about making a connection. When I really connect with the truth about me and where I'm at right now, I can connect with other people. So really connecting and being honest and vulnerable allows me to make connections with other people. Anytime, really connecting with other people and being willing to express and share love and give love is another access point, because I actually have to open up to it and it's going to move through me. So being willing to give it and express it to other people is another access point. Connecting with people that we enjoy being around, and asking if we need support, letting other people be there for us and support us. Being in nature, connecting with our creativity, these are all access points that really open us up. And then continue just to ask, what is it I need to know right now? What wants to happen? It's one of my favorite questions. What wants to happen right now? And often there's something that wants to happen, and there's something that's moving through all of us.
Great. That's great. Great advice. Anything else from you, Bryn or Roger?
Yeah, I just want to say to Bryn there, I'm okay just the way I am.
Oh,
There's nothing wrong with me.
that's right. That's right. You are, Roger.
You're a beautiful soul, Roger. We love you.
You are.
Are you turning red?
No, actually, not. So is there one message that you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, that it's, even though, the road, it's challenging to turn around and take a look at ourselves and to really acknowledge the struggles that we're facing, and to get on the path of like undoing and untangling and aligning, but it's worth it. Every single step of the way, every single challenge that we face, every pain that we lean into and open up to really opens us up to knowing more of who we are, to experiencing more of our passion and our purpose and our richness. And it's worth it. Every single step of the way, it's worth it. And it may not be easy, and there's no instant, easy, quick fixes, but it's worth it every single step of the way.
That's awesome.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us today. It's been wonderful talking to you and learning everything about what you do and self-love. It's such an interesting topic, and I'm sure we could go on for more hours, but we're close to the end of our 2 hours here, if you can believe that.
Wow.
Yeah. So one more time, your website is michelleburns.ca.
Yeah. And I'm on Facebook as well. Facebook is, I'm a Michelle Burns Coach.
Michelle Burns Coach. Okay.
Yeah.
And you have this class coming up, you said, or the Ignite Your
Ignite Your Brilliance. And yes, and that's coming up. There's it's starting at the beginning of April, And all the details are right on the front page of my website. And if anyone wants to contact me and ask questions about it, all the details are there for connecting with me and contacting.
Very nice. Okay. So I know all of you out there could use help finding the wherewithal to love yourself. Michelle would be a good source of information for you. Thank you so much, Michelle.
And thank you very much for having me. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Michelle.
So for us, next week, we have Lynn V. Andrews coming onto the show. She's a shaman and the author of the Medicine Woman series. And she's going to be talking to us about her newest book called The Crossroads of Power. So we've gone from healing the body to self-love, and now we'll be talking about power. And of course, you can join us live here on CCN and at 2 o'clock Pacific time and 9 p.m. GMT. And that'll be next week, which will be March 19th. Wow, we're already third week into March. I can't believe that. Where does the time go? And then I just want to take a shout out to all of the people out there at CCN that are doing wonderful programmings all the time. And when I say CCN, that is the Conscious Consumer Network. And take the time, go to the website, take a look at some of the shows that are out there that are of an empowering nature or are offering us a different way to look at things going on in our world. And if you feel so inclined, there is a donation page. It does cost money for us to be able to do some of the things that we want to do here. And there is a donation page already set up. Your $5, $10, or $20 donation, it goes a long way to helping us reach more people and bring on more programming. For me, that's all I have to say. Roger, Bryn? Anything?
The only thing I would say is when we're talking about self-love and the process of moving from the personality to the soul and back and finding that meaning, I just don't think we can overstate the value of the process there. It sounds, the conversation sounds succinct, but I also, my heart says, this is not really about a destination.
Oh, no, not at all.
Turning and the process of even having this conversation with ourselves is, in my experience, at least worth has the same merit and satisfaction as getting closer to that place where I'm more in line. So I just don't want us to play down the process part of it and how valuable and meaningful and beautiful it is.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying every single step of the way, it's you start to feel it too. It's not just we're going to feel better when we get there.
But right,
every step you take in that direction starts to you really start to feel the alignment with yourself and feel more grounded and have more confidence. So that's what I'm saying. Every single step that you take is well worth the effort.
And the journey doesn't begin if you don't start somewhere.
That's right.
Yeah.
So engage with yourself in a new way. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
that's all from Empower You.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you next week.